The Highland moors had always held a certain eerie fascination for me. The desolate, rolling hills and the barren landscape, stretching as far as the eye could see, were hauntingly beautiful in their own way. It was the kind of place where legends of ghosts and otherworldly creatures thrived. Little did I know that a drive home through these moors at night would become a terrifying tale that would haunt my dreams for years to come. It was late, on a chilly autumn evening, when I found myself on that desolate road, surrounded by nothing but the moors and the dark expanse of the night sky. I had been visiting a friend in a nearby town, and it was time to make the journey back home. The road was narrow and winding, with only the faintest hint of moonlight to guide my way. As I navigated the twisting road, a sense of unease settled over me. The isolation of the moors was oppressive, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I brushed it off as mere paranoia, a trick of the mind brought on by the desolation of the landscape. But then, as I rounded a particularly sharp bend in the road, I saw something that sent shivers down my spine. A figure stood by the side of the road, just at the edge of my headlight's reach. It was tall and slender, its silhouette almost unnatural. My heart raced as I approached, and I couldn't tear my eyes away from it. It seemed to be wearing a long, tattered cloak that billowed in the wind, but its face was obscured in shadow. I slowed the car as I neared the figure, my instincts screaming at me to drive past it without stopping. But something compelled me to halt. The figure turned slowly to face me, and for a brief moment, our eyes met. The feeling that washed over me then was indescribable, a mixture of fear and fascination that held me in its grip. Without warning, the figure stepped forward, and I could see its face more clearly now. It was not a face at all, but a grotesque mask of pale, featureless flesh. My breath caught in my throat as I realized that this was no ordinary encounter. Panic surged through me as I slammed my foot on the gas pedal, the tires screeching as I sped away from the figure in the darkness. I tried to put distance between myself and that nightmarish presence, but it seemed to glide effortlessly alongside the car. Panic turned to terror as I realized it was gaining on me. The cloak billowed around it, and the faceless mask stared blankly ahead. My heart pounded in my chest, and my mind raced for a way out. I couldn't go back the way I came. The figure blocked that path. I couldn't outrun it, either. My only option was to keep driving forward, deeper into the moors. As I sped along the winding road, the moors seemed to stretch on forever. The night air grew colder, and the wind howled through the barren landscape. I stole a glance at the rearview mirror, and my blood ran cold. The figure was now right behind me, its featureless mask inches from my rear window. I had to do something, anything, to shake it off my tail. I swerved the car from side to side, hoping to throw it off balance, but it remained eerily steady, maintaining its relentless pursuit. Desperation gripped me as I considered my options. Then, I spotted a small gravel path leading off the main road. It was a narrow and treacherous track, but it was my only chance to escape the figure. I made a split-second decision and veered onto the path. The car's tires skidded on the loose gravel as I navigated the twisting route. For a moment, I thought I had lost the figure, but it followed me onto the gravel path, its cloak now dusted with dirt, and its mask still staring blankly ahead. I had no choice but to keep driving, hoping that the path would lead me to safety. The path wound its way through the moors, and the terrain grew rougher with each passing mile. The figure continued to pursue me relentlessly, and I could feel its malevolent presence pressing in on me. I was trapped in a nightmare with no way out. As I drove further into the moors, I began to notice strange, otherworldly lights flickering in the distance. They danced and shimmered on the horizon, casting an eerie glow over the desolate landscape. The lights seemed to be leading me somewhere, drawing me deeper into the moors. I couldn't resist their pull, and I followed the lights as they guided me through the winding path. The figure remained just behind me, its mask now inches from my rearview mirror. I felt like I was being herded, like a lamb to the slaughter. The lights led me to a clearing in the moors, and I saw a sight that filled me with dread. In the center of the clearing stood a circle of ancient standing stones, their weathered surfaces marked with strange runic symbols. The lights flickered and danced around the stones, and the air seemed to hum with an otherworldly energy. I knew then that I had stumbled upon something ancient and malevolent, something that had been waiting for me. The figure behind me had been its herald, its guardian, and now I was trapped in its grasp. With a sinking feeling, I realized that I had been lured here, to this cursed place, and there was no escape. The figure stepped out of the car and began to approach the circle of stones, its cloak billowing in the wind. I knew that I had no choice but to follow. As I stepped out of the car and approached the stones, a sense of foreboding washed over me. I could feel the malevolent energy emanating from the ancient stones, and I knew that I was in the presence of something beyond my understanding. The figure stood at the center of the circle, and the light swirled around it, casting eerie shadows on the stones. I watched in horror as the figure raised its featureless mask to the sky and let out a chilling, otherworldly scream. The ground beneath my feet shook, and the air crackled with electricity. And then, in an instant, everything went dark. I awoke with a start, my heart pounding in my chest. I was back in my car, parked by the side of the road on the moors. The night was still and silent, and the figure was nowhere to be seen. It was as though the entire nightmarish encounter had been nothing but a terrible dream. But as I looked around, I realized that something was different. The landscape had changed. The moors were no longer desolate and barren. They were now lush and green, teeming with life. I could hear the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves in the wind. Confusion and fear gripped me as I tried to make sense of what had happened. Had it all been a hallucination? A trick of the mind brought on by exhaustion and fear? Or had I truly been transported to another place, another time? I stumbled out of the car and began to walk, my mind filled with questions and doubts. As I wandered through the transformed moors, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that something was lurking just beyond the edge of my vision. And then, as I reached the top of a hill and looked out over the landscape, I saw something that made my blood run cold. In the distance, I could see a figure standing on the horizon, a tall, slender silhouette in a tattered cloak. Its face was obscured in shadow, but I knew without a doubt that it was the same figure that had pursued me through the moors. My heart sank as I realized that I was still trapped in this nightmarish world, that there was no escape. The figure stood there, watching me, its featureless mask staring blankly ahead. And I knew that I was now a part of its terrible, otherworldly realm, destined to wander the moors for all eternity, a prisoner of the Highland moors. And so, I continued to wander through the transformed moors, haunted by the figure in the tattered cloak and the ancient standing stones. The lights still flicker and dance around me, and the air is filled with an otherworldly energy. I have become a part of this cursed place, a victim of a drive home through the Highland moors at night gone horribly wrong. As I walk through the endless landscape, I can't help but wonder if there are others like me, lost in this nightmarish realm, forever trapped in the grip of the Highland moors, and I can only hope that someone someday will come to unravel the mystery of this cursed place and free us from its malevolent grasp. But until that day comes, I will continue to walk these moors, a prisoner of the darkness, haunted by the figure in the tattered cloak and the ancient standing stones, forever lost in the Highland moors.